This is the Rock and Roll and Coffee Show, episode number 75. I am Joe Sibilia. If you like this show, please do me a favor and make sure to follow us on all social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and you can now find us on YouTube. YouTube is just getting started, so not much up there right now, but go ahead and subscribe over at YouTube, and that way you can be updated once we get some stuff out there. All right, now on to this week's guest. My guest this week is guitarist, keyboardist Paul Taylor from the band Winger. It was great to talk to Paul about all things in his career, where he started, how he got started, how he joined Winger, and the years throughout up till today. I hope you enjoy this episode, and thanks for listening. Hey everyone, it's Joe with the Rock and Roll and Coffee Show. I want to take a quick minute before we get on to our conversation with this week's guest and tell you about Anchor.fm. As you may know, here at the Rock and Roll and Coffee Show, we use Anchor.fm for our podcast hosting. Why do we use Anchor, you may ask? Well, let me tell you. For one, it's easy. Anchor's creation tools allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. Number two, after you're done editing your podcast, Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. And the best part about using Anchor for your podcast hosting is you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership right from the start. Oh, and did I mention it's all free? Anchor is everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So go download the free app or go to Anchor.fm to get started. And don't forget to let them know the Rock and Roll and Coffee Show sent you. Well, Paul, welcome to the Rock and Roll and Coffee Show.
Thank you.
We are recording, by the way.
Okay.
So you're out in Tennessee?
Yeah, I'm in Nashville.
Now, why is it everybody goes to Nashville?
Well, I moved there. Actually, me and Kip both moved here after it was in 2002. We did we got asked to go out with Poison and Cinderella, and we hadn't been a band in 7 years. And Kip called me and said, "Hey, are you in?" Everybody else seems to be into it. And, but the problem was, at the time, Kip was in New Mexico, I was in LA, Reb was in Pittsburgh, Rod was in Long Island, and Johnny was in Memphis. So we were going, wow, how are we going to do this? You know, and our old road manager, Rick Fulner, lived here. And he said, why don't you guys all come to Nashville? I've got a good place to rehearse. I can put a bunch of you up. And your first show's in Tupelo. It's, like 100 miles from here. You can just jump on the bus and start the tour. So that made sense. So we all came out here. And in the 2 weeks that I was here rehearsing, I ended up just writing with all these people. And, at the time I was doing a lot of writing for TV and stuff. And in LA, despite everybody's best intentions, getting a write together is like everybody pulling out their calendars and looking a month ahead. And then the month happens and they all bail because they get busy. And so I was just writing by myself all the time. And we got on the bus, and after the 2 weeks of rehearsal here, and I said, you guys are going to think I'm nuts, but I think I might move to Nashville. And Kip was like, it's funny. I was thinking the same thing. So we were a couple of the first rock guys out here. I mean, the only other, Michael Wagner was out here already, but, of course, since then it's a whole different story now. But
yeah, because it seems like every other person I talk to on this show is in Nashville.
Yeah. I just saw that you had Ryan Cook on here, and we hang a lot. In the mornings we go to the same Starbucks, and we all pal around.
That's fun. Ryan's a great guy.
Yeah,
I had a good time talking to him.
Yeah.
All right. Well, cool. Well, listen. So I want to get to know you a little bit. Kind of how you got into your career, and then and just have a conversation.
Yeah. The start of it all probably was just the piano that my parents had in their house. And I would walk by it and sit and, noodle around on it every day, just, for a few minutes at a time. And pretty soon I was picking out little song melodies and stuff. And my parents were like, wow, how are you playing those songs? And, it's just one of those things where I had an ear. And, but I was also very ADD and, when it came time for lessons and serious practice, an hour a day type stuff, I just, spontaneously combusted. I was like, nope, I want to just ride my bike to town,
Right.
But so I was doing that, I hung in as well as I could, and I got where I could play, proficiently, and my reading wasn't great, but and then my cousin moved into our house, and her husband at the time was Joe McDonald, who went on later to be Country Joe McDonald, Country Joe and the Fish. And Joe at the time was just playing acoustic guitar, and he had a jug band, but he was playing songs like "Had a Dog and His Name Was Blue." So I was like, man, I want to play guitar like Joe. So he taught me some chords, and I started playing guitar, and that was kind of the thing. I really enjoyed it, but I always loved playing piano, and I was, writing tons of ideas on piano, and slowly just getting better over time, And meanwhile, I had quit the lessons. I just couldn't
do it.
I just couldn't do the routine practice thing. I was just bouncing off the wall when I was young.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But anyway,
piano was the first thing you picked up, first musical instrument?
What's that?
The piano was the first musical instrument?
Yeah,
Okay.
by a couple years.
Okay.
But I was young. I mean, I started playing guitar when I was about probably 8, and piano, I was, starting to mess around with it, probably 6 or 5, So, and then when I was in high school, I decided I was going to take a class for the year where you could pick any instrument you wanted and study it. And it was a big music room. They had a lot of music rooms, and they had a lot of piano rooms. But I had decided I wanted to try to play violin. And so after about 3 weeks of not even being able to make a reasonable squeak on it, I just went to the teacher. I'm like, hey, man, we've got all these piano rooms. Can I just, study piano again? I know how to play a bit, and I'll just, and he goes, yeah, that's fine. So it was that year when I just, every day I'd go in there for an hour, and I started really writing a lot of just ideas, and, and that's when my playing got a lot better. Not that I've ever gotten to be, like I tell everybody, I'm good enough to get the rock gigs. If there's one regret I have in my life, it's that I haven't ever really studied and became a way better piano player. But maybe that's what's in my future.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, you ever think you dig deep into it again?
Well, yeah, I do actually have, my sights kind of on that at some point, when I slow down maybe in the next few years, and, maybe it'll just be something where I pick a year and really just go at it hard and heavy. But, for now, like, projects just keep coming up, and I, still got the Winger shows going, and, been just doing a lot of different things. And so, which is great. I mean, I'm honestly, I can't even believe I'm still going, and
never expected it.
If anyone had asked me, 15 years ago, I would have said, oh, I don't know, man. Well, especially when the 90s hit. I mean, there was a point where we all thought we might be done forever,
Right.
But the Seattle sound, it had its heyday. It had its, 10 years. And then, starting the early 2000s, like when we did that tour with Cinderella and Poison, that kind of just kickstarted it again. And we were like, wow, there's a market for us again, and it wasn't what it was, but, it was made it where we could go out and still earn a living and have fun and do shows. And, with Winger, I mean, the fact, we're still going with all the same 5 guys. And I mean, that's the success of that band, is that we're all best buds. And now we just go out and have dinners and crack up because, of course, I don't know if you know Reb at all, but he's the funniest guy you could ever be on tour with. So,
yeah, I actually interviewed Reb when he was in Dokken years ago.
Oh, cool.
Long time ago. It was on the Erase the Slate tour. So when was that? 2000, early 2000s?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a long time ago.
But it was him, Jeff Pilson, and Mick Brown, all 3 of them together.
Oh, boy.
And we were in this room. It was like up on the 2nd floor, so that was like a wooden floor. And back then I had this little tape recorder, the mini tape recorders. So I set it right down in front of them on the ground, and they kept stomping their feet because with that floor, it would knock the tape recorder over.
Oh, my God.
So Reb was kept knocking the tape recorder over on purpose.
That's
It's pretty
funny. And
funny.
of course, Jeff's got that giant laugh.
Yeah. and Mick's always making jokes, so
Oh yeah,
it was a
yeah,
good
he's
time.
great. That trio of those three, I can imagine that must have been a fun interview.
Yeah, it was a good time. But did you grow up in California?
Yeah, I grew up basically in the Bay Area. When I was young, those first years I was in Lafayette, right outside of San Francisco, and then
Right.
in 1970 we moved up to Santa Rosa, up in the wine country. So I finished school up there, and then started, moving. It's like I got to move to LA and make it, and of course I'd move down and come running home a week later because I ran out of money. But I just kept at it. I was just always, starting in high school, I was playing in a lot of club bands. I was playing in the Embarcadero Center up on I can't remember what floor, at a place called Barney's. I was playing, doing shows in Alaska and Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I tell people it's funny because I know guys, like a lot of my buds, like Ryan and all the guys, are like, man, I wanted, when I was young, I just wanted to be a rock star. I wanted to be, and I just never even thought it was a possibility. I mean, I loved playing guitar and jamming to B.B. King records, but I just never thought, I was always trying to figure out what I was going to do when I got older. And meanwhile, I started playing. All of a sudden, I was playing in clubs, and all of a sudden, I was booked for months and making a bunch of money, way more than I could have made in a day job. And I remember one day I was just driving. We had a gig in Fairfield or Fairfax, California, and I remember just in my car and just all of a sudden going, "Wow, is this what I do?" It finally was that day where I'm like, man, I've got work for, I'm booked way out, and it doesn't seem to be ending. And I'm like, hey, maybe I can do this,
Yeah, so it just kind of found you.
It did.
That's awesome.
I mean, like I always say, it's, of course, past the point where you have any talent, it's a lot of luck and timing involved in this biz,
Right. So, part of that luck, didn't Aldo Nova found you? Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, we kind of found each other. I mean, that's one of those luck and timing things. I had, funny enough, I was in the Bay Area, and at the time, I was trying to put a band together. Well, we kind of did it. It was me and Troy Lucetta, which, funny enough, me and him are going to be recording again in the next week.
Nice.
It was me, him, and a guy named Dave Notary that was the singer of a band called Mile High in San Francisco. And we had decided we were going to start a band. And so I moved down to Hayward, and we rented a big storage warehouse, and we built a stage, and then we got all these padding, and we got it all set to go. And then me and Troy both ended up with gigs, and I think his was actually the beginning of him getting in Tesla. I think, but back then they were City Kid, they were called, I think.
Right. Yeah, I think so.
But so it never really got off the ground, but we had a good fun month of hanging out together, and we wrote a couple ideas and all that. And then now, funny enough, me and Troy are both here in Nashville. But
right. Yeah, I had Troy on the show when I first started the show. I had him on.
Oh, cool. I love Troy. He's a great guy.
Yeah. So how'd you meet up with Aldo?
Well, so I was down in the Bay Area doing that, and Aldo just blew into San Francisco, and I can't remember what brought him there because he was from Montreal. And so I met him at a party, and I think, Kevin Carlson, who ended up being the guitar player, was there. And I knew all these Bay Area guys from some of the bands, was it Benny or the Jets and Rags, and there was all these guys. And so we were all kind of hanging out, and so Aldo was there to put a band together. So he had, he found Billy Carmassi for drums and Kevin, and he actually put a whole band together. And then they went in to rehearse for a week, and he decided he didn't like whoever it was he had gotten on keyboards. And so, they all were like, hey, what about Paul? And we had met already. And so, yeah, that was it. I went down and he kind of had this little record under his arm, and I was kind of going, is this guy for real? He's like, this is my record. It's going to be huge. But then I went into the rehearsal place, and all the Portrait label was there and all these guys. And I was like, wow, this is for real, And so, so I got the audition that day, and they were like, okay, we're flying you guys down to LA. We're going to do a video. that was in '81, and so we were all like, "What's a video?"
Right.
And
Right.
because MTV didn't come out till '82, so
Yeah.
they were like, "Oh, it's these little things Showtime plays in between movies and all that." So we're like, "All right." So we flew down there to do Fantasy and Ball and Chain, and they basically kind of had to tell us, "All right, just act like you're playing," and because we'd never really seen a video before, so we didn't even know what to do. But anyway, so
Yeah.
it's funny when I watch that video now, it just cracks me up, just going, "Wow, we were
Yeah,
clueless."
That was a funny video. That's the one where didn't some guys have some guns or something?
Yeah, the laser at the beginning. That was
Yeah.
actually Lucasfilms did special effects for that. And if you look at it now, it's so hokey. I mean,
Oh man, yeah. He shot it with his guitar or something, the door, right?
yeah. He blows the door open with his guitar with this laser beam, and I mean that was Lucasfilms, I think, that did that for us. And I mean, it looks like a cartoon, but anyway.
Yeah, nowadays any kid in his bedroom could probably go do that on his computer.
Yeah, and of course, the amount of money we were all paying for videos back in those days, $150,000 to $250,000, and but it was funny. Like we ended up with Winger, we did. If you go watch our video, Can't Get Enough, the video for Can't Get Enough, that was because each time we would have to do a video, we would kind of scroll through reels and try and find somebody we thought was good, and there was a couple guys that we wanted but couldn't get. But for that one, we had seen this guy's stuff, and we're like, wow, man, he has a distinctive look, and it's good. And so we ended up getting him, and it's Michael Bay, who went on to become a giant film guy,
Yeah.
It's funny if you watch the Can't Get Enough video and then you watch the movie The Rock, he definitely has a distinctive style of, he loves fan blades and helicopters and orange lighting, and, but yeah, it was amazing to get to work with him, and he was fantastic. I mean, the quality of that video, it looks like a Coke commercial or something, but he wasn't super friendly to us, but he did a good job.
Yeah. Did you like making videos?
I didn't really.
No.
I never saw too many videos, the ends where I went, oh, that's really cool. I did like our Headed for a Heartbreak video. I don't know. I mean, it wasn't amazing or anything. It's rare that I'm blown away by videos, but that one I liked, and of course I always liked the song too, which helps. But
yeah, but around that time when you guys were first coming out and everything, you had to have a video, didn't you?
Yeah. You were pretty much that, and I mean that's kind of what broke us, because the record kind of came out and we were kind of stalled a little bit, and then. We had this video, and I remember, the label going, "Hey, man, we need to amp up that, the plays on the video." And it slowly, it was like the second or third week, all of a sudden things kind of clicked and took off a bit, But of course, we didn't come out till late '88, so we got in at the tail end of, when things were going to be good. So. I wish we had started early, and gotten in the early '80s, but it's all good.
But you got in there though.
Yeah, I mean, at least we had a pretty good 2-record run. That '88 to '92 was all pretty good, and then it was definitely in '92 we started just seeing, the attendances and plays and everything everything was dropping, and we thought it was us, but little do we know, it's like, nope, it's, the 80s stuff is falling on its face for a while.
Yeah, it happened to everybody.
Yeah, that's just the way it goes.
Yeah. So Aldo Novo, that was your first big break, right?
Yeah, and I mean, it was great. I mean, I owe him one for that. I mean, it was a solid year on the road. We went out opening for Hall & Oates, like shortly after we did those videos. They're like, hey, you guys are hitting the road, and the singles flying up the charts. So they put us up for 3 weeks with Hall & Oates, and in the second week we were out, Billy Carmassi, the drummer, got the chicken pox.
Oh, no.
So we got quarantined off the tour, and had to wait it out for him to get better. But by the time he got better, they had us booked on quite a long tour with Blue Oyster Cult. Okay. So And we went out and did that, and by then the single was like number 3 on the charts, and we were, opening for Sammy Hagar and for, Hart and all kinds of, it was great. It was an amazing, year, and it kind of helped me cut my chops to, to learn how to, be out on the road and all that. But it was great.
Were you strictly doing keyboards, or were you playing guitar also?
Strictly keyboards on that one. Yeah.
Okay.
And so I had a Yamaha CP70 with 2 Oberheim OBXAs on top. And it was amazing. I mean, we opened for Journey and Triumph and Blue Oyster Cult at the Pasadena Rose Bowl, sold out
nice.
For a July 4th concert. I mean, so I went basically from clubs, and within a short period of time we did that gig, and I just remember being like, oh my God. I mean, that I'd never even played anything really like a big show, let alone 75,000 people.
How nervous were you?
That was fun. What's that?
How nervous were you?
Quite. But well, the other thing is that the band before us was Triumph, and they were having a lot of problems with sound on stage. And so I was going, oh my God, hope that doesn't happen to us. And, but we got out there, and the second we started playing, everything sounded great. And I realized that it was way less stress playing a giant show like that, because the crowd was, the first row was 50 feet out and 20 feet down, and it just looked like this little sea of people, and where like when you're in a club, you've got that one guy sitting in front of you with his arms crossed with, with that smirk on his face. So you didn't it wasn't like any of that. It was just kind of like, wow, okay, this is easy.
Yeah. But, yeah. No, I agree. I played in some bands, and we played some big shows, and then of course, the clubs, and playing the bigger shows is much more comfortable.
Yeah.
But you kind of feed off that energy too, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The crowd.
And I mean, these days I actually really like playing this. When we did the Token Lounge up there in is that Michigan or somewhere up there recently, and it's just a small little place with a low ceiling, and everybody's packed in there, and it was really fun to just play a nice little intimate show like that,
Yeah. So you do this with Aldo Nova, and then when you get off the road, is that when you hooked up with Alice Cooper, or what happened there?
Yeah, it was shortly after that. Aldo, we stopped, and then he called me for one final New Year's show with Hart up in Seattle, and then that was that. And he went off to do a new record, and in the meantime, I got a call to do the Alice thing, and I was like, wow, Alice Cooper. And it was this girl who had seen me from the Alice tours, and she's like, I've been trying to track you down. We need very badly. She goes, you play guitar too, right? And I go, yeah. And she goes, we need a guitar player, a keyboard player for Alice, and somebody that can sing some backups. And I go, yeah, I can do all that. And she goes, well, if you want the gig, she goes, we don't really even have basically anybody else to audition. So, come down to LA and, go ahead and audition, but it's a pretty good shot. You'll get the gig. So I learned like 5 songs that they sent me, and I went down, and I've told this story before, but Alice came walking up, and I'd gotten there really early, and he's like, hey, are you the guy auditioning for keyboards? And I go, yeah. And he goes, does your name start with a K? I go, no. And he goes, okay, you got the gig. And I'm like, why? And he goes, well, I've already got a Kip, a Ken, and a Kane. He goes, I don't want any more Ks.
And you didn't even play a note?
No. Well, then we went in, and he goes, do you know 18? And of course 18 is like, 3 chords on an organ, and and so we played half the song, and he stopped everybody, and he's like, you got the gig. It's not rocket science. He goes, you play guitar and sing, right? And I go, yeah. And he goes, yeah, you're great. You got it.
Wow.
Like,
you had to
I told him, I go, really? Because I know 4 other songs. And I go, he goes, no, it's not rocket science. So anyway, I was blown away.
You had to be thinking, this can't be real.
Yeah, it was crazy. And and super fun. And, of course, that's where I met Kip. And, it was a few days into it. I got there early for rehearsal, and Kip was sitting in the hall with a boombox playing some stuff. And I'm like, man, that's pretty cool stuff. What is that? He's like, oh, some stuff I wrote. And I was like, well, who's singing? And he goes, me. And I'm like, I was like, wow, dude, you got a great voice. So when we hit the road, I said, God, I would love to write some songs with you. And so we started writing, and we had a little Ensoniq keyboard. We would sequence stuff out in hotel rooms, and
Yeah.
the rest was history. We were out 2 years with Alice, and Kip was like, "Hey, I'm going to quit and go get us a record deal." And I'm like, "Well, don't quit. Like, what if you don't get the record
that's
deal?"
pretty
And
brave.
he's like, "No, I'm pretty sure I can pull this off." And sure enough, I was with Alice in London at one point, and I was at a party for Love Hate, and Kip called and was like, "Hey, we got signed to Atlantic," and I'm like, "Wow." So,
so you get signed to Atlantic, like everything's just falling in your lap.
Well, those days, yeah. I mean, it was crazy. I mean, I had definitely a good run of things just going one to the next,
And you didn't even want this at the beginning. Well, not that you didn't want it. You weren't shooting for it, right?
Well, if anyone said like, "Hey, would you want to go out there and rock and tour?" and I would have been like, "Oh my God, yes." I mean, but I just, in the back of my mind, I just wasn't overly confident that I was going to pull that off as a lifestyle,
Yeah. Okay.
I remember driving down the 101 because, we're all Bay Area guys. There's a bunch of us that ended up coming out of there, like Gary Peel, who I was actually on the phone with today, that ended up playing in Boston, and the Night Ranger guys. And so I was driving down the 101, and I see Jeff Watson goes driving by me in this nice BMW, because Night Ranger was starting to take off. And I remember just thinking, God, that must be nice, but I just never thought, yeah, that'll be me, or,
right.
I don't know.
Yeah. What was your first impression of Kip when you met him? Do you remember?
Oh yeah. I mean, Kip is very dry to this day. And I mean, whenever we, go to say something that he said, anybody in the band, we all have our things where we mimic him, and it's the joke. I mean, he just has one of those personalities that's just, he's very, he's always in his head, like if you ask him a question, there's like about usually a 5 to 10 second delay, because he's usually orchestrating a new piece, or like, and then he'll look at you and go, "What?" So it took a while for me to get used to his vibe, but once I understood, like, okay, he doesn't hate you. It's just, it's just his thing. He's just got that personality, and we're super close. I mean,
that's awesome.
But yeah, I think he gets misread a lot, because he just isn't one of those people. He just doesn't turn it on for anybody. He, which I envy. He doesn't feel the need to be overly this or that. He just is who he is, and that's just his personality. And but the guy is like the most talented musician I've worked with in the business.
Yeah.
He just is. I mean, between the body work he's done, from his solo records to the Get Jack musical to the symphonies, and now he's writing a string quartet for the lead violinist of the Nashville Symphony. I mean, the guy is just a genius.
And I guess you won't be playing violin on that.
Yeah. I'm not even going to try.
No, yeah, Kip.
I've never picked up one since, actually.
No, I've never met. Well, actually, I did meet Kip. I met you too before at a Specs Music in Florida. You guys were doing an in-store. I saw you guys with. Who'd you play with? Cinderella and Bullet Boys, maybe.
Oh yeah. That was a fun tour, because all three bands, we were at the top of our game. That was just an amazingly fun tour, and all three bands, we got along just really good, and we would all jam together at the end. It was great.
Yeah. But I never got to interview Kip or sit down and talk with him. So, but I always thought he was, amazing musician. Just like you said, very talented.
Well, it's funny too, because a lot of times people would watch the videos and go, "Oh my God, Kip Winger can't even play the bass. Look at him, he's not even playing." And I mean, the video directors would go, "Don't worry about your instruments, just focus on the camera and rock out." And so, he was just trying to be a performer like we all were back in the day. And, so I was reading all these things about him. I'm going, God, if you guys only knew who you're calling a no talent bum. I mean, he's a super, super talented guy.
Well, we have Bo Hill is a friend of mine also, and he was saying how how talented you guys were, Winger and Kip, and you guys were just a very talented, amazing band.
Well, yeah, I mean, gosh, I mean, when you got Rep Beach and Rod Morgenstein, and it was just a good blend, and I mean, obviously the fact that we're all just still hanging out and having fun. I mean, it's been an amazing venture, and the cool thing is too, we've all got all these other projects going, Kip with the symphony stuff, and Reb is in Whitesnake, and John's in Starship, and Rod doing Morgenstein Rudis, and Jazz is Dead, and teaching at Berkeley School of Music. So we've been a busy bunch of guys, but so it's great, and it's great. We're all pinching ourselves that we're still hanging out and having fun, and
Yeah,
so.
I mean, you can't ask for much more. It's
yeah,
awesome.
the hard part is just, getting our schedules all together. It's rough to be able to squeeze these gigs in when we know, like, okay, we can do that, we can do this week, we can do, but it's been cool.
Do you do mainly fly out dates?
Right now, yeah, and I got to tell you, those are, they wipe us out. I mean, they're hard, and especially with the fact that all the flights right now are getting delayed and canceled, and we have had our fair share of that lately. So, we're on our last 3 gigs. We've got next week we're in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and then we're in Denver, and then back for a couple days, and then we're doing Waterloo, New York, which is up in the Finger Lake area. So, but yeah, they're tough, man. Like when especially when you've got layovers. And I mean, me and Kip flew out to do a show in Sacramento about 3 months ago, and it ended up taking me and him 14 hours to get from Nashville to Sacramento.
No,
I mean, I was like, we could have flown to Tokyo by now.
Yeah, let's go play Tokyo.
Yeah, but anyway,
but so. Speaking of Beau Hill, he kind of got you guys started, right?
Yeah, well, he was the only reason at the time that we got signed, because Kip had made several attempts, I think, with demos and stuff, and walking into Atlantic with Doug Morris and all that. But by the time that things, because Beau had been working with Reb and Kip, he was producing stuff and using Reb and Kip on things like, the Bee Gees and Chaka Khan and Roger Daltrey's record. And so those guys were playing on all kinds of stuff for Beau back then. And but so once we finalized some of these songs that me and Kip had written, and Reb and him had written some, and we did numerous demos. And then, but having Beau, because by then Beau had some success with Rat and all that. And so, he was the firepower, past the fact that we finally did have a pretty good demo. But I don't think, and maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think it would have happened without him. But,
well, I mean, you guys were a talented band. You had good songs, are you happy the way that album came out, looking back on it?
The first one?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I in the day I thought, wow, man. Once it was done, I thought, this is gonna fly. Because I just thought we had our own slot and an original enough sound and an amazing guitar player and great vocals, and I don't know. I was pretty sure, I was going to be surprised if it didn't take off, at least to some extent. So
okay, it didn't take off right away, did it?
It took a while. It did, it just kind of stalled for a little bit. And then, like I say, when the video kicked in, and we had a friend, Rick Krim, over at MTV, and, they were real good about getting us on there. And, but yeah, it's, you never know. I mean, I've seen some good records just not go for some reason, just like, some of my friends that I thought were going to be the ones that for sure were going to have a giant music career because they were so incredibly talented, and just for some reason or another, the cards didn't line up for them,
See that a lot.
So you never know,
Yeah. So the first single off the first record, was that 17?
No, it was Madeleine.
That's right, Madeleine.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So let me ask you this. So at this point in your career, is it a little weird to play 17 right now?
For me, it's very weird. Yeah.
I
won't
think
speak
so.
for anybody else, but yeah, it's, it is.
Yeah. Okay. I always wondered that, so I was like, I'm going to ask.
The fans love that song. That's always the one that everyone wants to hear. It's an infectious groove and all that. I'm sorry the lyrics are the way they are, but you can't go back and rewrite. We were a lot younger, and of course, all the bands. Alice had 18, and the Beatles had 17, and just,
Yeah.
it is what it is. And,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
just, thankfully we've got plenty of other songs that are, don't have that kind of a problem, and, embedded in them. But
Yeah. I just thought I'd ask that. I always wondered that.
yeah, and sometimes we change the lyrics up. She's only 45, which
Jeez. Yeah,
just to kind of make light of it, and just go, look, we get it. We're older, and it's kind of but
that's funny.
The fans just want to hear it, and so
Right. So when you guys came out, amazing musicians, you had great songs, but then you still had some haters out there.
Oh, well,
right?
Everybody does. I mean, and we probably got, more of it than, just like, we were the early, Nickelback,
Right. I never thought about
I don't,
that way.
I don't understand why everybody goes after Nickelback. I think they've got some amazing sounding records.
Yeah.
And they're just a rock band. They're just a bunch of guys trying to make some music. And I don't know how it gets going where all of a sudden one band gets singled out like that, or like we did. But, you just keep going. And I mean, I do believe like there was a lot of people that at one point didn't think we were, and look, if you watch the old videos, they're corny and all that. So, but we've had just tons and tons of people, like from the cruises we do and all the shows later. I can't even tell you how many people come up and go, man, I never saw you guys before, and you completely just spun my head around. Like, I kind of was expecting you guys to be wimpy and crappy, and you guys blew me away. I mean, our live show is good. I mean,
yeah.
And one thing I will say, I mean, we're all singing. I mean, there's no tapes, there's no nothing. Winger, the vocals are really, we have our bad nights, but for the most part, they're pretty spot on, and we're all doing it. So
yeah. Yeah, because I remember back in the day, I mean, there was some conflict there with, well, I don't know if there was actually conflict, but Metallica had a little incident in one of their videos.
Yeah. And you know what? They have called, and those guys and Kip had great conversations, and just, they were like, hey, man, we shouldn't have done that. And, they all made up and are buds. So, more power to them for that. That was very cool of them. And so, it all works out. I mean, everybody grows up. I mean, a lot of the 80s bands, we were all probably a bunch of cocky little young guys, but that's, I was just talking to somebody today, it's fun now. Like, where we'd all go out and it was a big competition before, and now we all go out and it's just one big family, and we're all just really happy to see any of us that are still out and able to do it. Of course, we've lost a lot of guys along the way to whatever, just illness or drugs or alcohol or whatever. And so, at this point, we're all just happy to be playing.
Yeah, no, it's great to see that too. Somebody else told me that. I forget who told me that, but they kind of described it the same way.
Yeah, it is. And, on the, like when, we every year now when we do the Monsters of Rock cruise or whatever, everybody gets on the boat. It's like, hey, and it's like, everyone's having a lot of fun together now. And that it makes it all the better.
Yeah. Yeah. So after you toured for your first record, then you guys came back with a follow-up that was just as good as your first one, maybe even better. Did that sell better than the first one?
No, it sold half. But by then, we were, it was into the 90s by then. So,
right.
I mean, we were starting to get into, we wanted it to be even more progressive than it was, but the label wasn't in for that. So we canned a couple of the other progressive tunes and, stuff like Rainbow and the Rose and all that. And, so yeah, it sold half, but I mean, we were, the first one sold 2 million, the second one sold 1 million. So it was still, it was good. We were happy. Like, it's like, man, it's still selling some records.
And
so
you had how many, 2 or 3 hits off that second one?
Let's see.
All right.
I start to forget what's on what record anymore, but yeah, I mean, altogether, I mean, I think we did like 7 or 8 videos and singles, Hungry and Can't Get Enough and Easy Come, Easy Go. And, just, Madeline and Miles Away, we had a good number of singles, and, it's all good.
Yeah, yeah. Now you had you wrote Miles Away, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay. Did you have that song around a while?
Yeah, yeah. It was one I had written a lot, years before, and Kip tells the story on stage these days. But yeah, I'd written it, and I was playing with Eric Martin for a while in Bay Area. We were all, it was one of those Bay Area things. We were all, always playing in different bands with different guys. But I was doing some shows with him, and so I just happened to write it. I didn't know how to record very well, and I actually still have the demo of it, of him singing, and he sounds amazing. I mean, his performance just sold that song to the point where everybody, I mean, I got a publishing deal out of it because people were like, oh my God, that's a hit. And then, it got given to Hart and somebody else, so I don't know, different people. But then meanwhile, I got in Winger, and Kip's like, oh my God, I want to do that song. So
Wow.
I was like, well, fantastic, so I just yanked it, and we did it. And
So was everything the same? The lyrics, the melody, everything?
what's that?
What was it? The same song, like the melody and the lyrics?
Oh yeah, we
Okay.
stuck right to he's like, yeah, we're not changing anything on it. So
Wow.
yeah, and we actually, and funny enough, Reb even copied my guitar solo from the demo because he liked it so much. He goes, dude, that is just, it's simple, it's melodic. He goes, it's perfect for the song. So I was flattered about that.
That's awesome. Now,
Yeah.
writing the rest of the Winger songs, did you guys all contribute to that, or was there a main songwriter?
The Let's see. On the second one, we wrote a lot of that record live. We were jamming at mates rehearsals in L.A., and so but I mean, keeping up with Reb can just he's just a constant barrage of great guitar riffs, and Kip
Bet,
is
yeah.
so good at organizing them into songs. So I didn't have as many as those guys did, but I had a fair amount on the second one. I got like 4 or 5 songs that I was part of on that one.
Hmm.
So, and then after that, that was, I had just left the band, and then they decided to break up literally like 3 months later, after that.
Why did you leave?
I think just because me and Kip were just we had been 4 solid years, like nonstop with Winger, and we'd just gotten off of 2 solid years. So we had 6 years of just not even getting a second to be apart. And we weren't fighting, but we were just we would just stare at each other, and it was just like, and it was becoming pretty obvious that the band was having problems with ticket sales and all that, and I was just burnt out. I just was like, man, I am tired, and I wanted to. In my head, I was like, man, I want to get some recording gear, and I want to sit, and I want to start really concentrating on writing, and so and we talked about it, and so I said, well, I'm going to take a break, and then it was like literally a couple months later that they came to town to play a show at the Ventura Theater. I was living in L.A., and so me and Kip and Reb went and sat in Jerry's Deli, and they're like, hey, guess what? I'm like, what? And they're like, we're breaking up. I was like, what? So, they said, yeah, it's just, nothing's, the sales are down.
Couldn't do it without you.
So, yeah. So, and that's when I decided, okay, well, I'll just write. And that's when I just luckily fell into the whole Steve Perry phase of my life, which was amazing.
Yeah. How'd that all come about?
Well, my friends, Cindy, that works for Fan Asylum, had come to LA, and I had a buddy that was having an art party one night, and she was at it, and I was like, we were just talking and having some wine and looking at the art, and I just said, hey, what's Steve Perry doing these days? Because he had been out of Journey for 8 years, and she said, funny you should ask. He's thinking about putting something together. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I go, oh my God, me, just kidding around. And long story short, he called me the next morning at 6:30 in the morning. And by 7:15, he was standing in my kitchen having coffee with me. And I played him some stuff, and he liked it. And I'm kind of, simplifying it all. But it was unbelievable. I was standing in my kitchen, like, kind of just, I couldn't even believe it. Because I'm a Bay Area guy. I'm a huge Journey fan. I think they've written some amazing songs, and So yeah, we just started jamming, and slowly but surely the band fell together, and he said, "Hey, I want to do a record," So we kept writing ideas, and it was a 3-year long thing of being in a rehearsal hall in LA, and we would just keep working on different ideas, and finally we started writing lyrics and getting it all. So we put the record out and went and did a 2-month tour, and it was amazing.
Is that one of your highlights of your career?
It's probably just because I'm such a fan of the songs, Neil and Jonathan and Steve. I mean, they wrote very melodic stuff, which I'm a huge fan of, and I love Neil's guitar playing, and yeah, it was just, there was a few times while we were out on thin, I kind of looked over and I'm like, what the hell, because I mean, when they were, really doing good, I saw them a Day on the Green and all that. And of course I had opened up for them that one time where I was like, God, they're amazing. And, that the day I opened up for them with Aldo, they played Separate Ways for the first time. And I was like, holy cow, that's an amazing song. But yeah, so that was an incredible period of time. And then when we finished that up, Steve just went back into kind of just retreated back, and stopped touring again. And it was quite a while before he came out and did one. He still owed the label one last Journey record, which he went and did that. And then he disappeared again. So sad,
So I'm sure you don't talk to him anymore.
Well, we kept in touch for quite a while, and then it's just you get busy and kind of just go your own ways, So we've checked in every once in a while, but I think he's putting out some kind of a Christmas album this year, though, so that's cool.
Okay. Those always seem to do well.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe you should do a Christmas album.
No, I don't know. I don't have it in me.
So after Steve Perry, then what did you do?
Oh gosh, let's see. After Steve was, 90. I went and did a quick. Oh, actually, I went back with Alice for a while. I was on and off with Alice in between all this crazy stuff. So I played with Alice on and off for 13 years. But so I did some shows with him. Then I did a month long. Actually, at the end of one of my little Alice jaunts, we were at the House of Blues in L.A. And Tommy Shaw showed up, and he said, "Hey, are you guys, I heard you're finishing this tour in a couple days." And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "I have a tour coming up in 2 weeks, and I could really use a guitar player, keyboard player. Do you want to do it? It's for a month, and it's opening for Leonard Skinner and Peter Frampton." So I was like, "Oh my God, yeah." So I went and did that, and it was an absolute blast. And Tommy's a sweetheart of a guy, and super talented and amazing singer, and so it was just super fun. Me and him were both really into cameras at the time, so we were out doing photos and all that. And funny enough, he now lives literally a mile down the street from me here in Nashville now.
Nice.
But so I did that, and then I did some shows with John Waite, which was also amazing. Huge fan of his voice. And then gosh, that took me into like almost, that was almost into the early 2000s. And then I had just a couple years where I was working on TV stuff and no tours until that 2002 tour with Cinderella and Poison. So
tell me about the TV work, because again, a lot of the people I talk to on the show have gone that direction.
Yeah, well, and at this point in the game, it's, if you're trying to get a song in TV, it's, you need to have a lot of songs because everyone decided they were going to do that. But fortunately, I had a 20-year jump on everybody. Mark Ferrari is the one that got me involved in it, and me and him and a couple guys in LA started, just frantically writing back in the day. I mean, Mark was the first guy to kind of take TV music and make it from elevator music. He was the one that kind of started going, "Hey, I'll give you songs that could be good enough to be on a record." And it just slowly took off. And I mean, long story short, I mean, over the years, I mean, I've written over 300 songs now just for TV, and the mailbox money on them is great. And but the stuff that I've done over the last years, there's so much competition, and all those libraries, those music libraries, they all got bought out by Warner Chappell and Universal. So I was writing for Universal over the last couple of years and stuff, but and it's fun, and I love it because I get to write all kinds of wacky different stuff, from sports type stuff to R&B to pop to blues. I've done a lot of blues and Motown and R&B stuff for them, and I love doing that stuff. And I always have to go out and find different singers to which of course in this town is not hard to do. They're everywhere, and there's just amazing talent around here. So but I've kind of cooled it with that, just because they're requiring much more from you per song, where it used to be, hey, give us the song and then give us a non-vocal version. Now they want all these different splits and edits, and a 10-second and a 15-second, a 30 and a 60, and sometimes those edits can take you a long time because they have to be seamless and have to have a proper intro and outro, and it's difficult. So it's a lot of work, and the placements just don't make it worth it anymore because there's so much competition.
Is it now, do they come to you and say, hey, we need a song that sounds like this, and then you have to come up
yes,
with it?
We need a song that sounds like this, but don't make it sound anywhere near that. So I finally just told them, hey, you might want to just tell us a general style and quit making us listen to certain songs and go, yeah, we need something like this, but don't make it in the same key. Don't have a singer that sounds like it. Don't use the same instrumentation. And I'm like, look, just tell me the style and I'll just pump out some songs in that style,
That seems pretty challenging. Is it challenging, or is it pretty easy?
It can be, but I mean, like there in the whole time I did it, I only had 3 songs turned down because they got nervous that something sounded too much like something, and it was worth paying attention to because a couple of the other writers I worked with ended up getting sued by Led Zeppelin over something, and it was ridiculous because I mean these songs don't make great huge numbers of money, and Led Zeppelin sued him, I think, for like $500,000, and they ended up settling for like, I think, $75,000. And I mean, they were like, guys, we didn't make any big money off this song, so you got to be very careful not to,
Yikes.
Yeah. So I was always pretty careful. And there was times where they just were like, you know what, you didn't step on melodies or anything, but it's just the essence of it is too, you came too close. So I'm like, okay, I'm all good for changing it,
Yeah.
Because I never wanted to get sued.
So let's go back to Winger now. So you got back together with those guys. Right.
Yeah, over the last years, I would, Kip would call and go, hey, can you do this show or that show? Because, for a while, I mean, some of the small clubs just weren't paying very much. And so to have all 5 of us doing it wasn't worth it. So he would call for the cruises or for the M3 festivals or the bigger theater shows. And I would just kind of step in and do those. And then they would just go off, they're self-sufficient without me because Kip can switch over to keyboards and John Roth can play bass. So, that's what we were doing for a while. And then over this last couple of years, he just started dragging me in more and more. And for this last year, he's like, hey, can you just jump on board for this year? And I'm like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So, and it's been amazing. We've been having a lot of fun.
Has it been challenging this past year with everything going on?
Well, it has. And, slowly but surely, one by one, we all have been getting sick. A few of us got sick when we weren't on the road. I got sick when we were. And so did Rod, where we were, we had to, cancel a few shows to do the right thing and stay away from everybody. And, so they put me in a rent-a-car and I had to drive 14 hours straight home. Because I had tested positive. So, just did the right thing and went home and sat in a room for 10 days. But it was about the second day in, I realized, hey, I can go out and get in my car and go for drives. So just to keep my sanity, I would hang out in the morning and watch some TV and stuff. And then midday, I'd get my coffee and jump in my car and just go for a drive in the country each day. So,
Yeah.
no.
So did you get sick with it or no?
No.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I did get vaccinated, obviously, because I was out doing a lot of shows. I'm going to be around, and we cut all the backstage stuff and all that, but you're on flights and
Yeah.
So, so I know, but like both me and Rod basically felt like we had a runny nose and a cold. I mean, didn't run a fever. I felt fine. So
that's good. I got it, and I was sick as shit. I'll tell you, I missed about 3-4 weeks of work.
Wow.
But that was before I got the vaccination. I got it. But,
yeah.
But yeah, it was bad. It was bad. So I'm glad to hear you didn't have to go through that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was fairly easy.
Yeah. So you got shows coming up. How many more shows you got lined up right now? Is it a lot?
We only have 3 this year. And then we're done. And then we've got a few in the early part of next year. There's that show down in Florida, and then that's about all I know about right now. So,
is that the one in the Keys?
It's that 4-day show down in the Keys.
That looks like it'll be a fun show.
Yeah.
Yeah. So are you planning on making another record with Winger?
Yeah, it's almost done.
Nice. Any release dates or what you're
Pardon?
Any dates you're shooting for to release it?
I have no idea. I mean, Kip is so busy right now. He's just trying to squeeze out, getting things mixed and, the final vocals and stuff. Rod came to town like 3 weeks ago and did drums, and Reb's been kind of, he had done some solos, but then he wanted to redo some, so he was in town doing those. And me and Kip spent a day going down and putting the final keyboards recently. So yeah.
So you guys recorded it like in a live room? You didn't do it virtually like a lot of people have done?
Yeah, no, well, it was a little of everything. I mean, John Roth did his guitars in Memphis, and I did do some keyboards on my own and sent them to Kip. But, the final part, I just said, hey, why don't you just come over? And that way because with keyboards, there's a gazillion sounds and ways you could do something. And so it's just kind of like, I'd just rather have him there where he can immediately go, no, or how about this sound? Or, so we just kind of flew through everything, and it made it a lot easier having him there.
Mm-hmm. What if you had to choose one? What would you choose, keyboard or guitar?
Oh my God, see, that's the tough one. But I don't know, probably guitar. I love being able to play guitar. On the few gigs where I was keyboard only, like when I did the Cinderella tour, and that's one thing we left out. Was I did a jaunt with Cinderella, and then it ended up turning into 4 or 5 more years with Tom Kiefer, which was awesome. Loved Tom, and the band was phenomenal. And it was great working with Cinderella after all the years of opening up for them. It was a real honor to place. And I did 8 weeks with the band. It was fun.
Did you and Tom? Well, I'm assuming you and Tom knew each other. Is that and he called you up to do his gigs or what?
Yeah. Matter of fact, he called me. I was just walking up the ramp to get on one of the boats for a cruise. I think it was a Kiss cruise that I was playing with Ryan. We had this little for fun band called the Big Rock Show, and Tom called me. He's like, "Hey, we need a keyboard player for Cinderella. Can you do it?" And I'm like, "Oh my God!" And funny enough, I told him, I go, dude, I'm 98% sure I can do it. I go, let me just clear some things and make sure that this is a go. I'm just getting on a boat. I'll call you when I get back. I'll be back on Monday. So I got back Monday morning, and I'm like, I got to call Tom. And I said, I was about ready to do it, and I was like, man, I'm kind of hungry. I think I'm going to go to the mall, and I got to pick something up, and I was just going to get a bite to eat at this place that I like. And I'm walking in the door to the mall, and Tom's walking out. And he's like, hey, and I'm like, oh my God.
What's the chances?
I'm just going to call you. I'm going to eat a sandwich. And then I was going to call you. And he goes, well, you know what this means, right? You're doing it, aren't you? And I said, yes, I'm doing it. So he goes, this is a sign that we ran into each other.
Yeah. So Tom lives in Nashville too then?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. See that? Nashville.
Yeah, Mark Slaughter's here and John Karabi and just it's amazing, The Nelson twins are here and gosh, just everybody. It's nuts.
Yeah. So looking back on your career, I mean, are you happy the way it went?
Oh yeah. Oh my
Good.
God. I'm more than happy. I just feel like so lucky. I worked hard and all that too, but I just, man, I wouldn't have called all the stuff I've gotten to do. I just wouldn't have, it's been a lot of fun and hopefully it's going to keep on going here,
Sure. I don't see why not. I mean, you guys are out there rocking still and everybody's together. So
yeah,
that's a good thing to see, is that the four of you guys are out there together. Because there's a lot of bands out there, I'm not going to name bands, but you know which ones I'm talking about, that have maybe one member or two members. And it's just good to see the full group.
And the thing is if you're a band and some of the guys can't do it or don't want to do it, and you've written some great songs, and I feel bad because of course they want to go play those songs, so I never, I get it, you just go out and do what you got to do. But boy, to be able to have all the original guys, including the new guy, which is John, who's been there since '92.
Yeah, he's been there a while.
The five of us together, it's just, we all love the 5-piece thing because vocally it's a lot stronger and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, awesome, Paul. Now, where can people reach out to you on social media?
Yeah, I'm not the biggest, I try to keep up with it all. I just, I'm not a, so I go through phases where I'm better than, but yeah, I'm on, Instagram and Facebook and all that kind of stuff.
Okay. Well, good, man. Well, listen, I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me.
Absolutely, man. Well, nice to, hear your voice rather than just see an Instagram thing. And, I've scrolled through your stuff and seen, you've done a lot of great interviews and it's awesome.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you checking it out. And, I appreciate you taking the time. And down the road, maybe we'll do it again.
Will do.
All right, buddy. Well, listen,
love to.
Take care. Have fun out there. Stay safe.
All right, man. Happy holidays. And hopefully we'll see you out there soon.
That's all for this week. Join us next week for another episode of the Rock and Roll and Coffee Show podcast. Available on all your favorite podcast listening platforms.